Well, I want to start today with mail time. We got a question from Cindy in Michigan. And I'm going to read you what she sent over because I think it's fodder for an interesting conversation. Here we go. Hi, Joe and Alyssa. We have an employee who pushes back with almost every directive, guidance, or task asked of her. When we recently changed our hours of operation, she came back with an alternate suggestion of hours that gave her a 3-day weekend. After asking for a raise and new salary structure, which we granted, she said all the work we did to figure out the new numbers was flawed, and she insisted on a bigger raise. After introducing a new process critical to operations, she ignored the instructions and spent 2 weeks telling everyone it wouldn't work. We dread dealing with her, and I know we should, quote, pull the weeds, but she's our only technician, and she's good at her actual job. How much is too much to deal with when it comes to someone who sucks up all the workplace happiness? That's Cindy in Michigan.
Wow.
I have so much to say. Where do you want to start?
Well, I'll be short and simple then, hopefully. So my first thing was, okay, this seems like an engaged person, maybe overly engaged, right? Because they've got constant feedback going on. The thing that clinched it at the end for me was Cindy saying she's the only person in that role, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I to me, I wonder how much that other person, that individual knows that they are the only person.
Right.
How much of that is you need me more than I need you in terms of dictating their commitment in the workplace,
Yes.
right?
To what degree does someone recognizing how disposable they are influence the degree to which they regulate their behavior? Great point.
That's right. Okay. My second thing is the last line is how does she say it? Something about allowing the overall happiness.
Yeah, how much is too much to deal with when it comes to someone who sucks up all the workplace happiness?
Right. And she also mentions about she's good at her actual job. But I would argue how much of your actual job, her actual job, includes making other people not unhappy. If you infect the entire team, that we've gone to the whole age-old one bad apple upsetting the whole cart. This is like the exact definition of that to me, is that her actual job does include not infecting the entire team with her unhappiness.
You went where I was going to go first, which is that there's kind of there's a bug in the matrix. There's a glitch. There's a flaw in the thinking here, which is, but she's good at her actual job. And we do this thing in our minds as leaders sometimes where we say, I've got a really good employee who does blank. He or she's really, really good. They never call off, and they're super reliable, and our customers really like him or her. And then you hear about all the ways in which they engage in behavior that does harm. And the pushback there has to be, then no, you don't have a good employee. She is not good at her actual job. This person is reliable at a couple of things she's asked to do.
Right.
But appears potentially to be lacking a whole other set of skills and instincts that are crucial to being a great employee. And we have, I'm sure Cindy has people on her team who are great employees, and they're the total package. And so we're not going to besmirch them by lumping this person in with them and saying, oh, well, she's good too. No, she's not. There's a pattern here of behavior that is doing harm. And when you use a phrase like sucks up all the workplace happiness, you're talking about an impact on culture and the experience that people have every day. And actually, that's a perfect little tease to what we're going to talk about in a few minutes relative to culture. But let's talk about the behaviors too, which is this constant pushback and questioning and arguing, which as a set of behaviors alone, I don't have a problem with that as a leader. If I have an employee who says, hey, I think there's a better way to do this, or hey, I really want to question why this decision was made, or, I appreciate that you did this for me, but I would have been happier if you did this for me. At a foundational level, that doesn't bother me if the person is not demonstrating a pattern of behavior that sucks the workplace happiness out, right?
Right.
If we have folks who come to work and they want a voice and they want their bosses to solicit their ideas and their opinions, and they want to have some influence over their work environment, that's good. That's important. And that's what we should be doing as bosses. We should be mining our people for those things, because at a psychological level, people need to have influence and have some choice over how they spend most of their waking hours. And so sometimes when we see employees doing these things, it's because bosses aren't asking. It's because the organization isn't invested. They're treating employees as worker bees, and it's a command and control environment, and it's show up and shut up and don't think and just do. But I don't think that's the case here for Cindy and her team, especially because she says, she asked for the new salary and we tried to make these accommodations for her. When you have someone who constantly argues and complains in spite of your efforts to get their feedback and input, well, now you're being victimized by some traits that are probably out of your control. And she used the analogy of pull the weeds, which I've talked about in my books and keynotes, which is that once someone demonstrates to you who they are, believe them and act accordingly. And if you have a weed in your garden, somebody for whom no amount of nurturing and support and fertilizer and oxygen will convert them into a flower, because weeds don't transform into thriving flowers, then we got to pull the weed.
Yeah. This whole concept of pulling weeds and, is it engagement versus the behavior in which it's infecting the rest of the team? I think that is the crux of where the majority of our great leaders really struggle. Like, is it me being too attuned to the fact that this person is constantly coming at me with feedback or engagement? Or can I objectively say that the behaviors that they are exhibiting outside of the recognized ways in which we have talked about feedback being beneficial to our relationship and to the team environment, is there objective evidence that they are acting outside of those mechanisms of improved engagement and feedback? Those are the hard questions to try to go, okay, can I remove myself enough from the feeling of nothing will ever be enough for this person to say objectively they are infecting the rest of the team and affecting the ability of the entire team or a good portion of the team to have happiness, to enjoy coming to the workplace, to not have to continually defend why they are doing something or how they're acting in accordance with whatever new changes, that kind of thing.
And at the heart of what you're getting at, I think, is that the leader needs to respond with curiosity and to differentiate between incidents and a pattern. And so let me talk about both of those for a second. So when someone argues or pushes back or says, I don't like this, the first response by really emotionally intelligent leaders is curiosity. Hey, what's that about? I'm not going to get defensive. I'm not going to feel like they're disrespecting my authority, because as soon as you get caught up in that cycle, there's a no-win situation for everybody. But if you can just be kind of compassionately curious and say, what's that about? Let me try to talk to this person and understand, like, where are you coming from on this? And some of the coaching stuff that we've talked about here and really helping people explore that is useful in those moments. And when incidents occur, that's probably the best response.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to notice a pattern of behavior, then we have to evaluate whether or not this is something for us to be curious about and it's fixable, or is this something we need to ask for a change around? And if the person demonstrates that they can't change, then what are our options? So if I've got an employee for whom this is a pattern, you use the phrase like nothing is ever good enough. And the other pattern here, and Cindy named this, is we dread dealing with her. That's her language. All right, so we have a pattern. And there is a belief now amongst leadership that this is how this person is wired. And we can still bring curiosity to that, right? We can still sit across from that person and say, hey, I've noticed this pattern. For example.
Yeah.
I'm not scolding you. I'm genuinely curious, and I want to ask you this question. Are you happy here? Because I'm seeing this pattern, and it's making me wonder if your needs aren't being met. And it's not something we can overcome because, like, the schedule's not going to change the way you want it, and the pay isn't going to change the way you want it, and we're going to have to do this new operational process that you don't think is going to work. Like, none of the stuff you're unhappy about is going to swing in the direction you want it to. So, Are you happy here? And that conversation goes in a whole different direction. The other kind of conversation that I think bosses could have in this situation is about style.
What do you mean?
If I have an employee who every time they see something they don't agree with, they make a stink, I may want to coach that person on picking their battles a little bit and saying, hey, you know what? I get it. But if you make a stink about everything you don't like, you're the boy who cried wolf. And then when something really comes up that is a total violation for you that you really want to be heard on, everyone's going to dismiss you because all you do is complain. And we're so used to those complaints that now they've been tuned out. We all got to pick our spots. And I want you to keep the dialogue open with me. But it's kind of human nature that when somebody whispers, you lean in because you want to hear what they have to say. But if somebody's constantly shouting, it eventually just becomes noise. I think that's another angle you can take with someone like this.
Wow, that was powerful. That, like, when somebody whispers, you want to lean in, but whenever someone's constantly shouting, you tune them out. That's like, I think I'm gonna have to write
and
that
here's
down.
where I think we can put our superpowers together, though, right? Because I come at it from like, here's what I want to say as the boss, but you're the coach. And so what's the question or series of questions I ask this person to have them gain that insight for themselves rather than me just giving it to them? Because if they can land on that themselves, that we've supercharged the effectiveness of the insight.
Well, I think that the whole series goes to the common theme of raising self-awareness, right? And so while that can take lots of different shapes and forms, I think starting with the question that you brought up, which is, are you happy here? Right? And then some questions about, okay, following up to that is, what does happiness look like to you? What does fulfillment feel like to you? So we're going to get into some ushy, squishy gray, because a lot of what I have found is in this area of never enoughness, whether it's, in our personal lives or our professional lives, we don't name what the end goal or feeling or enoughness is. We just think that once we get there, then we'll know. And the truth is, that rarely ever happens, because it will never be enough, even for yourself, if you don't define it.
So if we see a pattern of behavior that what's really going on with this person is a never-ending inability to be satisfied.
Right.
Or what we might see as satisfaction, but that they perceive as problems, problems, problems.
Right.
I'm probably not articulating that as well as I would like. I'll go back and listen to this and say, oh, I should have said that. But this idea that there is never a state of it's always a state of discontentment
Right.
for the
Right.
person.
Because they have not been able to articulate, name, and or describe the feeling that is satisfaction, contentment, ease in the workplace. What does that look like for them? What kind of money are they making? Is it a number? Is that what the pursuit is after? Is it a certain type of manager that they're looking to be led by, or maybe they're looking to lead, and you and your processes and your changes and operating hours are all considered obstacles to this undiscerned
Ideal. Yeah.
ideal
Yeah.
that they haven't communicated even for themselves. So questions that help frame that in for them can start to actually bring self-awareness to how close they maybe already are, or maybe they're not,
Yep.
to that ideal.
Yep. And I think it's important for our boss heroes to understand that your job isn't to fix people. I think when you have someone who maybe has this constant state of discontentment, if they're coming into the workplace with their own neuroses, their own issues, their own challenges outside of work that are then influencing their level of engagement or satisfaction or happiness at work, and then they're taking it out on the workplace. That isn't something that you're really going to be able to overcome. And when leaders address this, balancing the need to solicit ideas and opinions and to be flexible and to try to meet people with where they are, with also being able to communicate that, hey, nope, sorry, we can't do it that way, and this is the way it's going to have to continue. If you as a leader are not able to overcome the discontentment, it's not a failure of leadership. But allowing someone to remain and continue to do harm is. And so we have to have the conversation around, you've got two choices left, which is commit anyway and start thinking about how we need to change your style and your tone to be successful here, or move on. And whatever you pick, I'm going to try my darndest to help you be successful. But the time has come to make that choice because we can't continue as we have.
I hope that you got lots of gems out of that, Cindy, because I know I sure did, and I'm not even in your shoes right now. So our sincerest best wishes to you and your entire
Absolutely.
team.